Welcome to the D Essence Show. I'm your host, D Essence, and I have a special guest here with us today by the name of Professor Geoffrey Smith, who's also a teacher, counselor, and plays a part in psychiatry. His focus is on marriage and dating and family, and that's what we're here to speak about today. I figured since we're in the holiday season, the pressure is on to give that person, that special person, a beautiful, shiny, blinging gift. So I wanted to speak to you about marriage and dating in our society. I've noticed in my time, in my experience, that it's very different. There seems to be a lot of fear, a lot of hesitation, not so much effort nowadays. Everybody wants something quick and fast. Also, the pressure of holidays. If you're with that special someone for some invested time, it's like this pressure to go to that store and start figuring out what type of ring, but you're not really ready for it.
Absolutely.
So I have you here. I want you to be as open as possible. Let us know what's going on in our dating world, in our marriage.
Wow. Okay, wow. What do we have, about a 36-hour show here? That'll be the introduction. Thank you for having me. I've admired your work for some time, so it's great to sit with you and talk about this very critical topic at this time. First of all, understand that there's certain things in psychology called stressors, things that bring about stress, holidays being one of them.
Yes.
New relationships shifting, relationships shift. Like many things throughout life, they go through cycles and ups and downs, if you will. So it's funny because I was in Zales not long ago, and I was literally watching a bunch of young guys. I'd say about 5 or 6 different guys. They all appeared to be under, I'd say 20 or 22, but they look very young.
It's getting younger?
I think so, getting at the engagement ring counter. And I just sat back, and some of the guys just looked like they were so young. And I wanted to say, are you sure?
Yes.
Because age has so much to do with it. First of all, we know that there's a part of the brain that's not even formed until about 27. It's called the frontal cortex. Correct. And that's the part of the brain that makes rational, mature decisions, careers, relationships. So you almost want to tell teens, listen, you'll get over this. Now, It's not to say that all teens don't work out, but we do know from the research that the highest divorce rate is teenagers when they get married in this country. And we also know that the second highest group is really ages 25 through 29. So it's all these factors that go in. So are you doing something because you really want to? I want to be on your show. So I make every effort to come here and be a part of this, and it's a blessing and an honor. Or am I doing it to appease someone? Well, you know, we've been together for 6 years. We have 2 kids. We have a cat. We have a speaker system. And we have a living room table. So we might as well just consummate the relationship and take it to the next level. And at the end of the day, those aren't really valid reasons.
No, they're not. And I agree to some certain point, because I was with somebody for about 10 years.
Okay.
And within the first 6 years, I needed a goal.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Sure.
When it hit 10 years, now family got involved and was like, okay, what are you doing with my daughter? Is there another plan?
Right.
And he was with it. But at the same time, there was a hesitation because I don't really think he was ready for that type of next step. But he did it anyway.
Sure.
So a lot of people are making this next step saying they want to do it, but then when it actually starts to kick off, the fear comes in.
Sure.
The hesitation.
And fear is a very interesting word. And we use all types we use fear as an acronym in psychology, and saying that it can mean false evidence appearing real, or face everything and recover. It's kind of how you want to look at that word.
Right.
And so it's a choice. But anything that's fear-based probably isn't something that you want to invest in a relationship, from a relationship standpoint. Being together with somebody for, and you said 6 years when you mentioned it, and it's so interesting, another risk factor for divorce and separation is years 4, 5, 6, and 7. So people call it a 7-year itch. Let me just back up a bit without throwing too many numbers out here. It's really not a 7-year itch. It's really a 2-year itch. What the brain is wired for and the body's hardwired for is 24 months. The first 2 years of any new relationship, it's all kind of things that the brain's releasing into the central nervous system.
Okay, that's why it's always exciting.
For the first 24 months. Right?
It's the honeymoon stage.
Serotonin and endorphin, all those great things that the body receives, and everything's brand new. Yep. And what you like, I like, and what you like to do, I like to do, and I'm sending you a text because I'm thinking of you, and all these things. But then the reality of it is, a marriage works, or any relationship, if you have what we call in the trade a commitment to the day-to-day.
Right.
And the day-to-day ain't, and I'm saying ain't on purpose, ain't always fun. That's paying bills. That's grocery shopping. That's raising
It's a
children.
routine.
It's a routine.
Right, and that's where the test is. Who can stand that test? And I've also noticed that in our day, well, our generation, we don't really outlive the tests.
Wow.
When things start to get hard, that's when you start pushing away. But
Yeah.
that's where the relationship grows its substance.
Yes.
It's like I know we're talking about marriage, but then it goes like you said, we don't even date anymore.
Correct.
I can't even get a date to Fridays.
Right.
You know,
Right.
nobody wants to put in the effort.
Yeah.
Everybody's scared. Everybody wants something fast. What do you feel about that? Because I know you work with kids.
I do.
And I know you must hear a lot.
Oh, I've spent decades working with younger people, which helps keep me young, thank God. But I would say on a very serious note, we've gotten away from what used to be called courting, which means going out and doing stuff.
Ladies, your men need to court you still.
And I still court my wife. I
Right,
mean,
there's still
it's-
chivalry
it's
around.
still, I hold the door, I do those things, flowers, the whole bit. But at the end of the day, back to your original question, I think what happens is we've substituted going out to a movie or a place to eat and really sit and talk to each other. I don't like
Right.
movies for dates, but I love restaurants. Because you sit at a restaurant, I get a chance to see how the other person interacts with the wait staff.
Right.
Does the person let you in through the door first if that's important to you, whatever?
very important.
And so what's happened now is we've just substituted, and I'm not saying everyone's doing this, but there seems to be mistaking a physical component for something that is deeper than that. And one thing we learned psychologically speaking, lust can never be satisfied. The more you have it, the more you need it, so to speak, but you can never satisfy it.
Right.
Love can be satisfied. So there's dating stuff that's going on that is getting more towards the physical. And physical we know how to do. We're instinctively hardwired by God to essentially have sex and make the generations, keep the generations going. The hard part in any relationship is things like communication. Hard part is things like listening when you really want to speak or repeating back what the person said. That's the hard part. Leaving a note and saying or texting, I'll be home in 15 minutes.
Right,
I'm
it's
working
just
late
the
tonight.
act of respect.
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you think is a good age bracket to get married?
75 plus. No kidding.
I mean, I agree. Sometimes you're waiting to be in your mid-30s and
Sure.
it doesn't,
I think for men, and I would have to separate that out, I'd say for men, 30 plus. Now,
30 plus.
30 plus for the men. And without getting too graphic on your show, that's the first dip in male testosterones at 30.
Okay.
Which means we're now making decisions based on hard facts versus other things that are driving the decision.
Okay.
And I would say for women, 25 plus. I'd say a 25 plus for the women, 30 plus for the males. So for example, if a woman wants to be married at 25, maybe the guy should be about 32, 31, because we as males tend to mature a heck of a lot slower.
Yes, definitely.
And when that happens, part of the problem is when people have been together, say from high school or something. So they've been, freshmen in high school,
Right.
14 years old,
Right.
and 10 years later they're together. So the woman's 24, the guy's 24 in this case, and it can be a disaster because at 24, she's more like a guy of about 32, 33.
Right.
At 24, he's more like a younger person of about 21 or 20.
But there's also no experience outside of that. Like I was taught, date,
Sure.
learn about yourself.
Sure.
Date different people.
It's true here's what dating does. Dating is almost a mirror to your life. And I think what happens is most people have issues. And it's a joke in psychology, it's not really a joke, but it says we spend the last 110 years of our life trying to figure out the first 5. And
Goodness
so a lot of
gracious.
stuff happens when parents weren't prepared and
Yeah.
things we were overexposed to and a whole bit. So what happens is until we kind of work out our issues, what ultimately happens is we draw from weakness. So as opposed to saying, I choose, because that's the power of choice, I choose to be in a healthy relationship and this is what it looks like to me, we settle. And I often tell students, always select versus settle. Select means I've empowered myself based on a criteria. This is my list. These are the 7 things that I want. Versus, well, whoever comes along and happens to have a pulse and a Metro card is the one that I connect with. So I think it's making peace with your past, figuring out what has
Agreed.
happened, working from there, and maybe getting out of the box a little bit.
There's a lot of emotional baggage I've known. And I've also known it's more with men because of the fear of expressing themselves
Sure.
and being vulnerable.
Sure.
They kind of hold it all in
Yeah.
and they don't know how to commit or even let someone into trust.
And I think it's that combining with the fact that we can look at numbers and say from about mid-1970s, so from the mid-70s to the present, we've seen that fathers have left the home. There's been a breakdown of the male in communities. And let's go in a bit deeper, if I may, with communities of color. So you have a lot of Black and Latin males who aren't really sure what does it mean to be a male.
Right.
So the idea, unfortunately, and it's supported through music and social media, is the one that has the more sexual conquest, for want of a better term, as opposed to saying the one that can be committed, or the one that works on things, or the one that understands his role as a man. What does it mean to be a man in 2018? And I think what happens is we have an ideology, we have a false ideology. It's not about fighting and yelling and screaming and hitting, God forbid. It's about listening, it's about nurturing, it's about sitting back and saying, I want this relationship to go places, but let me work on myself first. We don't do that. And what that leads to is a term called codependency. And all that is an inability to be by yourself. So you're constantly in relationships from your teens all through your life, because the idea of being alone hurts people, so they'll settle for a relationship.
Oh, definitely.
And it goes back in that
Definitely.
cycle.
I mean, now we're in the season of cuffing, this new, you know.
I know the word.
And it's like we, as natural human beings, crave, when it gets cold, our bodies crave attention. So now, instead of being with someone you love or putting the effort, you just want to cuddle up with something, and once the season's over, you're done.
Right.
But I've also had through speaking to others, a lot of them feel that men and women should not be married. It's a thing that it's kind of the past. Men are going to be men, females are going to be females. What do you feel about that? Can a man really like settle down and be faithful through the?
Oh yeah, I mean you're looking at one.
You're speaking
in case
for
my wife
yourself,
is watching this. No, clear it is. You're looking
But by
at one.
nature, isn't it like temptation is?
It's there. I think it's there. It's temptation. Yes, it is. But I've learned this much. I've studied marriage for decades, and what I've learned is this: living together is a minor inconvenience for a man if it doesn't work out. Because most people who live together don't marry, and when they do, the divorce rate is higher over the course of time.
Why is that? Is that the pressure of just the word marriage?
It's not the pressure of the word marriage.
Because let's say we've been living together for 10 years. Nothing really changes but the expectations, because now there's a title.
There's a title, but that title, and in the law, this is taught in law schools, roughly speaking, since we're in New York State, there's approximately 1,052 legal rights that marriage brings about on the marriage contract.
Goodness
and it's called a bilateral
gracious.
contract. It's a two-sided contract. So it's 1,052 approximately, and it varies by state, but roughly 1,000 or plus rights that marriage brings about that living together doesn't. See, the one thing about living together, it gives you a false sense, because there's always a back door. There's always the back door, and the back door is the metaphor for if this isn't working, pack up, go, and move on. So it's a minor inconvenience for a man who leaves. It's very tough on a woman. It can be very traumatic for her when it breaks up, and it's horrible, or the word I want to use is horrific for children, because now children, and that's what we're seeing now, is
they compare it to a death.
Absolutely, it is. And if the child's very young, then they've even internalized this more and said, and young being under 10, when the parents break up, the child will say, you know what, if I had kept my room clean or I had better grades, my daddy would have stayed.
Okay.
And that's a hard thing when you start dealing with child psychology.
They start taking the accountability of what's happening
and
in the home.
And it had nothing to do with that.
Right.
It came down to the fact that the parents got together, most likely at the wrong time for the wrong reason with the wrong person.
Got it.
And for it to work real quickly, it's got to be the right person at the right time for the right reason. And we don't do that. It's got to be 3 for 3. It's not 1 out of 3, which is 33%, 2 out of 3, 66%. It's got to be 100%. But you got to be the right person to draw the right person.
Real quickly, how did you know she was the right one? How did you propose?
Very nervously. Thank you. You know, it's the most ironic thing. We had an unscheduled first date at 6 in the evening downtown where we were both working. And quick story, we were still talking at 4:17 in the morning, almost 11 hours later on an unscripted date. And I knew within 5 minutes of the talk, this is my wife. And I asked her that same question some years ago. And I said, when did you know we were going to marry? And she said, within about 3 minutes of the first date, I knew you were going to be my husband. So I think people used to say, you know.
Yes, you know when you know. And I guess that still stands for today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And guys, take your time with the holiday gifts. No pressure.
None.
Don't make a move if you're not ready, because it's a big step. Or you better get in line. I'm your girl D. Essence, right here on the D. Essence Show. You can find Geoffrey at
gsmooth147 at gmail.com. Hit me up.
And you can follow the D'Essence Show at Miss D'Essence1 on Instagram and D'Essence Romero on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
No, you're
That was
excellent.
awesome.
You made it so easy.